Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephen Tracy and this is Analytical, the channel where we demystify data. We cover everything here from Google Analytics to research methods, all the way down to things like data visualization tools and tactics. And in this short video, we're going to be covering off tips to help you be more effective when using Google Analytics. There's lots of different videos and resources already out there that help you to use Google Analytics in depth. We're not really going to be covering that here. What I'm covering in this video are a couple of tips that I find are really useful for new users to Google Analytics to help steer them and give them more purpose when they're using the tool. The challenge with GA is that when you first open it up, it can be a little overwhelming. There's lots of different reports and features and things that you can use to look at your data. And so these are 5 really useful tips I like to train new users on when it comes to getting the most out of Google Analytics. So let's jump right into it. So starting with tip number 1, the first thing I usually tell new users of Google Analytics is always to start with purpose. So before you ever open up the tool, start looking at reports, applying dimensions and filters and things like that, you need to sit down and ask yourself what you want to learn from GA today. If you just open up the tool and expect insights to be jumping out at you, it's never going to happen. There's a lot of ways to look at data inside Google Analytics, and you're going to waste a lot of time if you're just poking around and clicking on things and hoping that things are going to pop out at you. There are lots of different ways you can look at data and performance on your website inside GA, such as looking at where people came from. Did they come from organic search or from ads? Where were they geographically based? What's their profile? You can even look at things like top performing content and user journey or user flow within your site. All of these encompass different reports and different ways of looking at data inside of GA. And so what I usually recommend is that before you open up the tool, you sit down and write some of the questions that you want to answer in that particular session. You want to treat every session with Google Analytics as a different focus. You're always trying to uncover different things or answer different questions. So when you're starting to use Google Analytics, it's really helpful for you to sit down first and for you to write down some of the questions that you want to answer, and then you can start figuring out which reports and filters and dimensions you need to apply to answer those questions. So tip number 2 is to use the Google Analytics demo account. So what is that? If you Google Analytics demo account, you're going to see this in the search results, and if you click on it, you can just scroll down and click on this link here which says Access Demo Account. What this is going to do is it's going to give you access to a web property that's linked to Google Analytics' merchandise store. And you can save this into your web property so you can actually start looking at some of the data for free on this web property. The reason this is really helpful is that there's a certain amount of traffic volume linked to this account. So when you're starting out in Google Analytics and you're trying to figure out how to do different types of analysis and run different reports, it really does help to have a certain level or threshold of traffic volume associated with your website. And so if you just launched a new site or blog and you have a low volume of traffic, you might be limited, or you might not have as many opportunities to learn because some types of analysis do need a certain amount of scale, like cohort analysis or behavior flow and things like that. You really do need a certain threshold, usually at least 1,000 or 2,000 page views per month at a minimum, and it helps to have even more than that. So the nice thing about the Google demo account, which is linked to the merchandise store, is that it has a healthy amount of volume. And so if you're trying to really just learn how to use Google Analytics, then this is a really great asset for you to use. So the third tip is to use segments inside Google Analytics. And this is something that a lot of people miss. So when you're looking at data inside of Google Analytics, you're looking at all of the traffic volume to your site. And you might go in and apply dimensions or filters. But again, you're looking at all of the people that visited your site. And so the segmentation feature is found here. And again, a lot of people miss this. So by default, you're looking at all users. And what you can do is you can click on this, and they have some ready-made filters or ready-made segments for you that you can instantly look at. So if you want to segment mobile visitors only, you can click on that, hit apply. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you, if you're looking at a bar chart, a second line on your chart which shows you that segment, and you'll see breakdowns for that segment on all the metrics. So I'm looking at an audience report here, but if I go into, say, behavior, top pages, again, you can see that I have a breakdown of total users as well as my segment report, which is mobile traffic users as well. So they give you a lot of pre-made segments here. You can scroll through and play with them and look at different segments. So if you want to segment your website by mobile versus desktop users or organic versus direct traffic, it can be really helpful to look at the behavior patterns of different users based on what devices they're used or how they got to your site or where they're based. The other thing that's really great is you can build segments, and this is a really powerful tool. So if you click on the new segment feature, you can actually construct segments based on any criteria. So you can see you can build these segments based on demographics. This is actually data that Google gives you based on cookie-based data that they infer from search traffic or traffic behavior. You can build segments based on things like their operating system or their device. So overall, the segments feature is really, really powerful. And I recommend that as much as you can, analyze your traffic with segments applied. Try not to just focus on looking at the all users, because the real insight is usually going to be when you dive down and look at specific sub-segments within your data set. So tip number 4 is to use the navigation summary when you're looking at popular content on your site. So if we go into the behavior and all site report here, all pages, this is a really good place for you to be looking at what were the top performing pages on my website. Now, sometimes you might want to know, well, where did they, if I looked at this /store.html page, you might want to know how did they get to that page, or where did they go after that page on my website. And there is another report here called Behavior Flow. This is a little bit more advanced. It does, it's a lot more flexible, and it gives you a lot more deeper insight, but it does have a bit of a learning curve. And if you just want to get some quick insights in terms of previous page visited or page that they went to, or a page that they went to immediately after, then what you want to use is something called the navigation summary, which you can just click on this tab up here. And so what it's going to do is it's going to show you a quick summary of the most popular pages that they visited before that page. So for the people that didn't land on that page, these are the top pages that that people were on before they got to the /store.html page. And then on the right side, under next page path, you have, for the people who stayed on the site, what page they went to after. So you can see in this case, the most popular page was this quick view, which is a product related subpage on the website. So, and you can also get some quick stats on what were the percentages of people that went to these different pages. So you can see that there's kind of a long tail of pages that were sending people to that /store.html page, but overall there was a high amount of people that went to this page, which again it's not really an actual page itself, as it is just a quick view of a product, a kind of pop-up modal. But again, this navigation summary, if you don't want to venture into the behavior flow, is a really good way to get kind of quick insights in terms of user journey and where people came from or where they went to after visiting a particular page. So tip number 5 is to use the search bar at the top of Google Analytics. And this is interesting because it's something that not a lot of people use because they don't realize how smart this search feature is. So Google Analytics has kind of quietly rolled this out and beefed this feature up quite a bit over the last couple of years, because this search feature now fully recognizes natural text, natural language querying. So you can type really complex queries and Google Analytics will be able to build a filtered report for you very quickly. And the reason why this is so good is that if I were sitting in a room, as someone who knows Google Analytics really well, if someone asked me to build a report with a couple different features and dimensions applied, it's probably going to take me a couple minutes to go through and do that. Whereas you can get that answer to your question in seconds using the Google search bar, Google Analytics search bar here. So for example, let's say I want to know what was my top page on mobile year on year. So we've got a fairly complex query here, and if I click enter, what it's going to do on the right side here is it's going to unpack this query, and so it looks like it worked. So top page year over year on mobile by page views, you can see it grabbed the January to July timeframe, and it grabbed the 2019 versus 2020 And again, it applied a segment, which is mobile traffic only. And you can see there's been some really great upticks in mobile traffic, 487% year on year across mobile. So this is great because, again, keep in mind, if I had to build this report with all these filters, the top performing page, filtered by mobile with the time frame of year on year, even as someone who knows Google Analytics really well, it would take me a couple of minutes to go through and apply all these filters. Whereas I did it in a matter of seconds by just typing it using natural text querying. So let's try something else. Let's say I want to know where did my visitors come from in February versus March. Click enter. And there you can see Google has unpacked this query to look at where people came by country, and it compared the March to February data, and it's showing where my top visitors came from across these two time intervals. So it's very smart. It's very good at unpacking your search queries. Again, you don't have to worry about following some kind of syntax. You can just type in your question as it kind of comes to your mind, and Google's pretty good at getting you answers to that. And aside from this report that it gives you here, this kind of filtered report, you can always click on the Go to Report section and it'll apply all those filters and dimensions and give you the full report here. So you can go even further and do more deep dive analysis. So this is one of my favorite things to use right now, and it's something that is equally valuable to both a trained analyst and even a newbie to Google Analytics, because again, even the most skilled person in Google Analytics is never going to be as fast as the kind of filtering and querying and just getting answers to questions in Google Analytics as this search feature is. So those are my top 5 tips for using Google Analytics more effectively. I hope this was a helpful video, and thanks for watching.